T-minus 10, 9.
You're listening to the Launchpad Podcast with J-Man.
5,
Brought to you by Gallant Media.
2, 1.
Here's your host,
Ignition.
J-Man.
All right, and thank you once again for joining me for another edition of the Launchpad Podcast. And we have a big fish here. And it's great because I've watched you for years, right? We've been in each other's social circles. I've never really had the chance to sit down and chat with you other than when you were here. I think it was a couple of months back, right before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And he's a legendary, you probably know the face already, former TV personality right here in the nation's capital. Huge sports fan. We're going to talk about that. He's a Leafs fan, everybody. Don't tune out here. Also likes the Boston Red Sox, and we're going to talk golf. I don't know a lot about golf, but I'm going to talk for you there, Kurt. He's also a very charitable guy, so we'll talk about some of his charitable endeavors that are happening here in the city. And now he's doing real estate with RE/MAX. And most definitely a trustworthy guy to do so in a very odd sales environment, I'd have to say right now. Kurt Stoodley right here on the Launchpad Podcast. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
Yeah, absolutely. So right before we got started with the podcast, we were talking about your lovely refinished cabinets. You did that all by yourself. I want to give you some props right there because I've added something new to my background. I don't usually have this fern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I put it here because it's too cold outside. I think it's a fern. I don't know. I just know I'm trying to keep it alive.
I just have my wife's African violet here, which is blooming nicely at present.
Those are lovely. Do they take a lot of care or no?
I don't know, buddy. That's out of my realm, right? She asked me if they look nice here, and I go, yes.
Right.
And that's the end of my green thumbness.
Right. All right. Let's just talk about guy stuff. We just failed really bad
I can
there.
mow a lawn like nobody's business, right?
Mm-hmm. I bet. So I wanted to start where things kind of ended for you, or I should say there was a genesis, right? You have to make this transition at one point. Some people never do, and I want to give you props for doing so. Me, obviously, being from a radio background, there is definitely a lot of ego that can get wrapped up in what you do, especially in television where you're a face. And I definitely see in radio where people just don't want to leave. So that moment happened for you, but I want to talk about your last day as a TV personality here in the city and what that was like. You almost sobbed like a baby. You did a good job holding it together.
In fact. And I tell you why. It was a very emotional day for me for many reasons. I mean, I spent my entire life in the media, my entire life from when I was a teenager. And I grew up in a media family. And my dad was there during the entire broadcast. And it was, for me, it was the end, right? So that's why it was emotional for me, because I knew leading up to that day that I wasn't going to really pursue any other media gigs after that. I wanted to do something different, and I wouldn't say tired of the business, but the business changed enough for me to go, you know what, maybe do something else, maybe pivot here. And, like I said to my wife, who is my girlfriend at the time, I'm 52 years old and I got to get a real job. Right.
Right.
So, it was an emotional day, but it was a fun day. And I really appreciated the opportunity to do that, to have a show like that, where it was all about the people I met along the way. And, my dad was there and a lot of people I worked with from the get-go when I arrived here in Ottawa. So it was a fantastic day. I loved doing it. It was a great way to go out.
Mm-hmm. And you still had a full show to do. Did you not, after you kind of said your heartfelt goodbyes? I remember them saying
in the middle of it. I think it was kind of in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But at that point, like, a lot of things had happened. A lot of people had dropped by. My dad showed up. He tried to play it off like he was on Skype and living in Manitoba, but he was in this next studio, right?
Right.
And you know what? My dad passed away 4 years ago this month, I think. Yes, this month, September, and it was a thrill for him, to be a part of it. And we. He taught me how to be a radio broadcaster, right? In our dining room. with a cassette tape player, right? So a lot of that was about him too, because he had retired from what he was doing from any broadcasting whatsoever, and I was calling it a day, and I think it was a big day for both of us in that sense.
Right. Full circle.
Yeah, yeah, and like I say, I think, in my case, it was time to do something else because I'd never done anything else, and the challenge was right in front of me to make a living and do something different that I'd never even ventured into in any way before, other than buying a house, right?
Right. So what do you think compels people to do that and does not compel others? Because we're very similar in that aspect, is that I was in radio. I left radio. Actually, I got canned, but then I made the decision not to go back. I got let go, and they were going another direction.
Right.
And then I got into direct sales, MLM, started building out my own portfolio, and then moved forward in a different direction. And now, doing trade shows with Sean and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So what is it about you that you think that maybe some other people just don't have? It couldn't just be the fact that you were just tired of doing media. There had to be something else to it.
No, I would never tire of it. Jason, it was the best thing I had done in my life, like other than have children and so on. It was this particular job, hosting, in the end it was called CTV Morning Live and still is, but of its various names and what it encompassed, was the best gig I've had. Like I've done morning shows a couple of times. I did one in Halifax for 5 years. I've done various things. And that was one of the reasons why at the end I was like, you know what, I need to do something else, because I don't want to go sideways or backwards. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't want to have to be hunting around for a media gig just so I could stay in the game. I thought I had the capacity to do other things, and I had no idea what they were.
Right.
And I went in a certain direction and thought about what I should do and what I could do and what was available to me. So, and I didn't waste any time doing it. I made a decision rather quickly, but it was just, I had done so many different things in media that I couldn't think of anything else that I would want to do at that point in my life. Right. If I was a younger man, I would have hung in there a little longer. When I came to Ottawa, I was a sports anchor at first. That's why they brought me here, to take over 6 o'clock sports in their new building and so on and so forth downtown. And not long after that, I was persuaded to do a morning show again. I didn't want to. I love the sports gig, like covering the Senators and the NHL. And,
right.
That's a dream job for a guy who loves sports like I do and loves TV and the media and stuff. It was a dream job. But the opportunity to start a morning show fresh, and I was told at that point I would do it for a couple of years, and it turned into 12. It was something I couldn't turn down. And it was a lot of fun to do. It's the best job. Like, I came to work as myself, right? It was just me. And a lot of times, buddy, people would say things to you, and they weren't trying to be rude or anything, but I've had a lot of people say to me, man, you looked hungover yesterday. And I would be like, well, dude, maybe I was, or, who knows?
That's the life. That's the life.
And it was a great opportunity for me to go in and do a television program where I didn't have to be anyone else but myself. Not everybody liked me. If you didn't, sorry. But if you enjoyed what we did and how we did it, then great.
Right.
But it was, and sure, it was getting up early in the morning, but everybody in the media knows if you're a morning guy, you're doing okay. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I enjoyed it. I didn't mind the early hours. I love the fact that I had, by noon, sometimes earlier, had the rest of the day in front of me, right? I could do other things. I could enjoy my life. I wasn't a napper when I did morning TV. No wonder I looked tired. It was a great life for me for the 12 years I did it here. It was fantastic. I was sad to see it come to an end, but these are business decisions. There are personal decisions, but it's the way it goes, right? I'm not the only guy that ended up in his early 50s looking for a different gig or trying something else, right? Certainly in the media business, and it happens in different companies all over the place. Like they change, things change.
So what would be the most difficult moment in television? And we had spoken previously. I do want to ask you about interviews, but is there something that had happened during your TV career, whether it be a big event like, please share.
When I was a young reporter in Halifax, I was with ATV and ASN, and I was a weekend anchor, a weekend sports anchor, and I would report 3 days a week. I was doing that when the Westray mine disaster occurred in Nova Scotia, where many miners were trapped underground in a place about an hour and a half from Halifax. And it happened on a weekend. I happened to be working when everything was mobilized from our television station point of view. Everybody was in the building on that weekend because of this disaster and getting ready to go cover it. And I became part of that team. Maybe by default, but I did have some decent reporting skills at the time. At least I thought so. Mm-hmm. But I was up there for, I think, a total of 10 days. And it was as a young person, and the first real big event that I had seen or witnessed or been a part of in a media sort of way. It was emotionally draining, and it was one of those situations where it's what reporting is all about, right? It's what TV news is all about, but you're connected to the people and you see what happens. It was very difficult. And I mean, the day of 9/11, I happened to be, when that happened, I had just finished the morning show here in Ottawa. There were, we didn't have a noon show at that time, I don't believe, but we had a 6 o'clock program, and I had to go on the air and ad-lib my way through that. And try and, like, when I first saw that, I couldn't understand what was going on like everybody else. Mm-hmm. But immediately you're put in a situation where you're the guy who's in the building, so you're going to have to go on the air, and we're going to cover this, and this is how we're going to do it. A super tough thing to do, but from a perspective of a career and what we do, one of the most exciting days ever, because you saw the world change right before your eyes, and you're trying to relay that information to people, right?
Right.
One of the funniest things that happened to me here in Ottawa was the very first assignment I had. I came as a sports guy, and it was when Alexei Yashin had held out from the Senators for a year.
Yes.
Or whatever, for a season. And I had just arrived in town, Jason. I didn't know a soul in the media, like nobody else. I knew one guy, right? One person. I hadn't met anybody. So I go out to this. I hadn't even been on the air yet, I don't think. No, I don't think I was. Anyway, I had to go out to it was then the Corral Center, I believe, for this media conference. And of course, we go live with the thing. And I'm standing in a room full of media people who are waiting for Alexei Yashin to arrive. And sure enough, he's 40 minutes late.
Wow.
So I'm fresh off the plane. I came from Calgary. I was working in Calgary before here. Fresh off the plane, I'm at the big NHL stadium waiting for the big star in Ottawa to arrive, and he's 40 minutes late, and I got to dance through that, right? So I don't know how many times I.
It's a lot of this, right? The stretch.
Yeah,
stretch.
The stretch was unbelievable, but he eventually showed up and made me laugh, like the very first thing, right into the fire as soon as I got off the plane here,
right, in
Ottawa, my first time on the air. So, there are lots of memorable moments that I have, like great interviews that I've done, people that I've met that you would never have the opportunity really to meet.
Right. So who would be the number one? Like, who's the number one person? Let's say your favorite interview, but the person you were also in most awe of. So those are two separate questions. The person you were most in awe of, like, you're like, oh, that maybe even just got to smell their musk or their perfume. And then the person that you had the best time sitting down with and kind of getting to know, where you felt like you were building rapport.
I had interviewed Bobby Orr. Both are going to be sports guys, sports people. I'd interviewed Bobby Orr a couple of times previous to him coming to Ottawa some years ago, and he showed up on the morning show. And I forget what year it was, Jason, but it was an Olympic year, right? Because we were having our own Olympics as part of the show, like fun Olympics, like throwing darts or something like that. So stuff we made up, games we made up. So I do this 9-minute interview with Bobby Orr, who had just had a book come out and all that sort of thing. And there's something about Bobby Orr. He's the quietest guy. Like, he's unassuming and super nice and very quiet, but there's something about him, right, that draws people, especially, Canadian hockey fans, and I'm one of them. And my dad had interviewed Bobby Orr back in the day when he was a player, right? And I had actually interviewed him once in Halifax, so he remembered me, and which was fantastic. But so we do this 9-minute interview. We had the longest interview, one of the longest I can remember on that show. They're usually 4 or 5 minutes, right? But then he goes upstairs, does some radio stuff, comes back down and says to me, I had so much fun talking to you, and I love what you guys are doing. Can I stick around?
Wow. And
he's like, can we play some of these games you guys are playing? And I'm like, dude, you can do whatever you want. So, that was one of my fondest ones. My brother's a big Bruins fan, a big Bobby Orr fan, and he got a glimpse of that, and he was like, man, that's awesome. Like, it was one of those fantastic things that you pull off without a hitch, and, one of those memories. Tough interviews. Oh my God.
Come on, there has to be one. I'll tell you mine while you think about it.
Sure.
A guy named Johnny Winter. I don't even know if I've talked about it before on this podcast, but it's notorious among my friends in radio and when we talk about interviews and people that I met. And so Johnny Winter, world famous guitarist, blues rock guitarist, and did a lot of drugs.
The white hair, right? Did he have white hair?
Yeah. And he's like albino, and his eyes were all messed up. And it's amazing he was alive as long as he was. He only died about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had to do an interview with the guy. And he's at this age, number one, like, he doesn't give a shit. Like, zero shits.
Yeah.
And I guess, we were at the time Canada's only 24-hour blues radio station, one of the few in North America as a whole. So I guess, for his people, it was really important that he got on to the show and talked a little bit about his upcoming performance. And the only answers I got, and this is no word of a lie, it was yes and no. And it was awful. And I think the whole interview was 2 minutes, and I cut it short, and I had to play it too. And so I played this interview where I just asked him questions. He said, yes, no, oh, no. And he said, bye. And that was it. And that was the worst interview of my life. It was cringeworthy, and you could tell that he wanted to be anywhere but in front of that phone having a conversation with me.
Those are tough. I've had my fair share of them, although nothing really pops into my mind. Like, I've had some really interesting ones. I remember when I first arrived at a station in Calgary in 1997. It was a brand new station. It was A Channel. That's what it was called. It was a brand new startup in Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg. They had a station. They were starting fresh. And we had the latest technology, like state of the art, back in 97, right? And on the day of our launch, I had an interview with the mayor at the time, who was Ralph Klein. Remember Ralph Klein, right? Anyway, our state-of-the-art technology really didn't operate properly. We spent a good deal of time with our cameras fixed on the C train. The train that goes through town was right beside our station, so we had our cameras trained on that because nothing was working. Our servers were down, and whatever that means. But I ended up interviewing Ralph Klein for about 16 minutes. And I found out a lot about Calgary because I just arrived there too. And he was a media guy too, and became mayor. So he understood kind of what was going on. So Ralph Klein, I asked him everything. I found out where he got his haircut, everything you could ask a guy. I'm like, hey, I don't know what else to ask you.
It was all
what do you want to
bullshit.
talk about?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, such good fun. Like live TV or live radio, there's there's nothing better. I love my radio days too.
Yeah, I was going to ask about radio. See, I always shied away from TV, and COVID actually made this podcast go to video because I couldn't talk to people with the microphone anymore. And I was always very self-conscious of what my face was doing when I was talking. So I think I did the Chio telethon a couple of times or whatnot. And every time I spoke, I'm like, what is my face doing? Does that make any sense to you at all? Because when I'm behind the microphone, I can do anything. I could lick my lips. Nobody sees it.
Right. Yeah. I ended up getting into TV by accident. Like I was working, I was part of a morning team on a radio station in Newfoundland called Oz FM.
Okay.
In St. John's. I was the news guy, but it was a fun show. Like we had a good time doing it. And they had a guy they wanted a guy to go downstairs. They owned NTV as well. It was downstairs in the building, right? And they wanted a guy who could go on and read the sportscast in their evening news. So they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I'm like, sure, why not? So it was taped like earlier in the day. I would do the morning show, then I would come back later in the day, like 3 p.m, do the sportscast, put it to tape, and that was my day. So I started doing tape, both.
Do you mean reel to reel, that kind of tape?
No, it would have been. They were big. They would go into this camera deck. Like the camera was separate. It had a cord attached to this deck, like bigger than an 8-track, like a over VHS size.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's what we taped with. So I ended up doing that. I would do both the morning show and I would do sports on the television station. Then they asked me if I wanted to be a full-time TV guy, and I was like, seems like fun to me. Yeah. And that was that. So, but I desperately wanted to get back. I'd grown up in Halifax. I'm a Newf, but I grew up in Halifax. And I desperately wanted to get back to Halifax. So 6 months after I started in TV, I put a little demo tape together and sent it out. And sure enough, got a gig in Halifax, and I spent 10 years there.
Wow. And that would be a tape, like an actual cassette, right? Like, so I still have my demo cassette that I can't play on anything.
Yeah.
It's
I think
amazing.
I've got a couple sitting around, or maybe my mom does. I don't know where they are.
The technology. So when I was in radio, we had the carts. So the carts would play the commercials. You'd have to push in the carts. I was still dealing with reel to reel.
Yeah.
We had a DAT player, I think it was. Yeah. It was like the future of what would be on Walkmans, where it would pause where there were breaks. And then we had the stuff that was shooting off the computer because we were trying to integrate. And there were CDs on the back wall.
Yeah.
So, like, what a great training ground for somebody like me getting started at the Bear back in the day. Yeah. And then having all that great talent around me, like the Stuntman Stews, the Wendy Daniels, the Kath Thompsons, and all that kind of stuff. So it's amazing now. You just press a button.
Yeah.
Just go hang out with your friends. You don't do that. You stay there and you work on your show prep.
When I was, I started in radio when I was 16. And I was basically doing some shifts where you would just roll tape, or sometimes these shows you would play. I started on a country station in Halifax, CHFX it was called, and I did overnights, but you were just rolling tape, or sometimes these shows would actually come in on vinyl, right?
Oh, wow.
Like hit radio shows and stuff, like Casey Kasem and stuff like that.
Right.
Back in the day, they used to come in on actual vinyl. So, and one of my summertime jobs was I would help out in the engineering department. So, those carts you're talking about, I would make them, I would wind them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, for example, like for news clips, there would be 40-second carts, there would be 70-second carts, and then for music, there would be longer ones, right? Like 4 minutes. Yeah. So I spent a lot of weeks in the summertime in the attic of this old radio station, CHNS in Halifax and CHFX downtown, winding these carts, right?
Yes. And erasing them. You used to have to erase them on the
eraser. Yeah. You used to have to drag them back and forth, and
Isn't that great? Oh, that's a trip down memory lane right there. Like,
Yeah. I did everything back at that place. Like I picked up the garbage in the summer. I filled in for the maintenance guy. I
right.
did shifts on the weekends. I was the guy rolling around in the motorhome all summer, giving away stuff a couple of times. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I put myself through. I started in high school, but I put myself through university and stuff.
Right.
Doing
Now,
that, and
I
didn't
want
get a
to
full-time job till I was 21.
kind of figure out where we are in timeline in relation to one another. So radio for me, other than just the 1 year that I did, I think it was 4 years ago now, it feels like another lifetime for me. When I tell someone that, oh, I spent 17 years in radio, and most people that I'm meeting now, never knew I was in radio. So my transition, I think, might be a little bit further along. Now for you, you are also very visual. People saw you every morning. People saw you in the community. So I'm guessing there's much less of a disconnect opposed to, let's say, somebody in radio. But does it feel that far away for you right now in regards to where you are right now doing your real estate? Does it feel like another lifetime yet? Or
No.
do you still feel like you're in that transition phase?
No, I have a hard time believing that it was like my last television show, other than 67's hockey that I've been doing for Rogers, right? My last full-time job in radio or in TV was in 2013.
Yeah. Okay, that's a while back now.
Really?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like that.
Right.
But, I can't believe I've been doing real estate for, like, I'm in my 7th year. So.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And again, I commend you for making that leap. And it seems like a natural transition, doesn't it? Because people buy from those they know, they like, and they trust.
Yeah.
They know you already. I'm sure you have people coming up to you all the time like, oh my God, I gave birth when, when I was watching you on TV or whatever it might be. So you're a very big part of people's lives. How has that served you moving into real estate?
Well, the biggest problem I had, Jason, was letting people know, finding a way to let people know that what I was doing now, right? After the fact, because I still, once in a while, people come up to me and say, oh, you're back in town. Or I thought you retired, right?
Right.
Yeah, well, I retired from one thing, but I moved on to another. So the biggest obstacle I had was to let people know that I'm a realtor now. And I want to work with people I know. And so that took, I think it was a shorter time span than the average realtor, you know what I mean? To get established and people figure out what you're doing. But it did take some time. Like the first year in real estate was a struggle. Like I did everything. I went and took all the courses. I did them, in a short span of time. I got educated quickly. I got myself set up. And I remember it like, the day I got my new office at the Remax Affiliates building in Canada, got my new office, my new signs arrived. So I put everything in my office. I get all set up and I sit down. And I go, this is great. How come nobody's calling me? Right?
Yeah.
So, well, this is fantastic. Look at me.
It's going to be hard.
So I've spent a good deal of time trying to do that, trying to let people know what I do in any way, shape, or form. I try hard at social media. I'm not as relevant on social media as maybe I could be, but I struggle with that sometimes. I'm just because I'm 58 years old and some of it I don't get, right? But I'm actually gonna, I'm hiring people to do that for me now. So, it's stepping stones, but I've made it. I had a good partner early in my career for a couple of years in real estate that helped me learn. The curve was slanted in my favor that way because I had an experienced agent that I was working with for a couple of years. But now I'm starting to see the fruits of my previous labor in that people are understanding what I do now. And the people who watched the show and knew that it was just me, right?
Mhm.
Not some TV guy. That's just him.
Right.
They're starting to connect with me. You know, I'm a referral-based guy. I want other people to let other people know their experience, right? And it is an experience when you're buying or selling or both. And I try to make it as much fun and stress-free as possible. And you know, now I'm just talking to people in person versus I was talking to them through a lens, right?
Right. It's a
Same
back and
guy,
forth.
just a different gig. And you know, I've worked hard to learn this business, and I'm learning every day. But I've seen some good success, and you know, nothing makes me happier, man, than seeing people get the keys to their new place and how excited they are. I mean, how can you not be happy for them, right?
Right.
And that's certainly rewarding, and building a business like you're doing, like we're trying to pivot, to adjust, to make moves and make a good living and enjoy ourselves. And it takes a lot of work, right? But like I said before, I never saw media as work. Like, sure, you go to work and so on, but it was just something I love to do. Right now, I got you got to learn new skills, and a lot of people are going through this currently.
Yeah.
You know, during the COVID times, is they've got to adjust, and they've got to figure out different things that they can do, and the world is changing, right? So, you know, it's a lot of people in situations like we've been in where you've got to adjust, and sometimes it's at a later stage in life where you're like, oh, damn it, right? I was going to ride this puppy out right to the end, but the end came sooner than I wanted.
Well, let me speak to you, Kurt, because I watched the clip of you exiting television just the other day when I was doing my research.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that you said 7 years ago that you've said today.
Yeah.
And I want to vouch for you personally to the people that are watching, you know, this podcast. This is one of the most genuine people you're going to meet. You're friendly. I think it's the East Coast hospitality is still in you, very strong, and you don't deviate. You don't deviate from who you've ever been or how anyone has ever known you, it seems.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned it earlier, like there's a lot of ego in the media business, and I was part of it for a long time. I grew up in it. My dad was a CBC guy for 25 years, right? So, but I learned something early on that, you know, I tried, no matter what job I did in that business, to be myself and to just be. You know, I often laugh when people say to me, somebody said it to me yesterday when I put up a real estate sign, they said, oh, it's great to have a celebrity on our lawn. And I'm looking around going, who, right? I never saw it as that, because I was just a regular dude who ended up on television. That's the way I saw it, right? And I was able to translate that into some success in the business. And I mean, what better way? I just went and talked to people. Right? That's all I did. I got up every day and went to work early in the morning and talked to people and learned about people and what they did and what, you know, why they were there on television, finding out about them and so on. So, and the biggest compliment to me when I interviewed people, and you've interviewed a lot of people yourself, where after the fact, and, you know, television is, like you said, it's a different animal, right? Somebody points a camera at you, and some people you wouldn't think ever get nervous. But the biggest compliment I would get from people I've interviewed over the years would be this: you made that easy for me. And when they said that to me, I knew I had done a good job, right? They got their message across. They weren't as nervous and uncomfortable as they figured they would be. And I made them feel at home talking about whatever the subject matter was. What more could you ask for?
That's crazy. So your gift zone, making things easy. And when would anyone need things to be easier than when purchasing a home? You know, what a great gift zone for you to have. And with real estate, and you're going to have to pardon my language because I'm going to say it. What the fuck is going on? Like, what is going on? A home across from me. So I'll just share from personal experience, and then you can add your wisdom, okay? And then tell me why this is happening.
Okay.
So there was a gentleman last summer that was selling his house for $319,000. Okay, I'm in Barhaven.
Yeah.
And I bought this place for $275.
Okay.
Many years ago, 8 years ago. Now, most people that lived here bought it as a build. They probably sold for a little bit less than they could have, but they were happy to walk away with 50 or 60 G's after a few years. Yeah. So when this guy listed for $319, everyone thought, well, you know, that's going for it. I hope he gets it because everyone else will win. Well, there's some buyer from outside of the city, possibly from the West Coast, but bought the place for $350 in a bidding war. They started listing at $349. So until this summer, everything was listing for $349. So this is 12 months later. The house across from me just sold for $430,000. Where does that appreciation even come from? How is that possible? That literally we've seen it jump well over like $100,000 pretty much in just a little over a calendar month or a year. Sorry.
It's a situation we ran into here, and it started a few years ago, Jason, where we were seeing lots of buyers, lots of people ready to buy homes, be they people who already lived in Ottawa or came to Ottawa. And the inventory was getting shorter and shorter. So by inventory, I don't mean just new homes, I mean resale homes. People were standing pat a little bit, and there became a gap between buyers and sellers, right? So your lack of inventory drives prices up. Mind you, other factors include the fact that we're seeing townhomes, regular townhomes in Canada sell for anywhere between, $475,000 and $550,000. I know it's crazy, but the problem was we were behind in our pricing here in Ottawa. We should have been more level with price increases over time. Okay. So there was another gap. So now you have tons of buyers, people who want to get into the market. You have reduced inventory because not as many people are selling, and we didn't have new home inventory to go to, right? Interest rates are down. People are like, oh, I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. And then you run into those two worlds collide. So now you're stuck with no inventory, tons of buyers, low interest rates. You can't build them fast enough for people to occupy those homes.
Right. And COVID slowed it down too. There was no building for a couple of months.
No, exactly. So that gap between pricing started to catch up, but it caught up fast. So it seems like we're paying way too much for these things, when in actual fact, a townhome in Canada should cost, and should have a couple of years ago cost, in the $500,000 range, right?
Okay.
So now, and with COVID, it threw everything for a loop, because the people who had the townhomes and wanted to get a bigger home, or they wanted to move out to a bigger property because they were going to be working from home and they wouldn't be going down to the office as much. So they start selling their townhomes. All those buyers are going. I mean, I sold one in Canada about a month and a half maybe. I listed it on a Wednesday. From Wednesday to Monday, I had 40 showings.
Wow.
On Monday, we do this thing now. It's the cool thing to do called holding offers. So I didn't accept any offers. I didn't look at any offers till the following Monday. We had 19 offers.
That's insane.
Listed it. I thought high. Boy, was I wrong. Like it went for $114,000 over asking.
That's crazy. So
that's nuts.
For someone that's thinking about just selling themselves and they don't want to go the realtor route, I think sometimes what happens, and you can educate me on this, is kind of like, let's say the manager on a professional baseball team. They kind of get seen as the guy that just writes up the batting order, tells the guys to go play, and they just sit there and, they eat their seeds and spit out their chew. And it really doesn't matter if they're there or not, right?
Right.
So how important is strategy when dealing with a realtor, and how valuable is that strategy that the person trying to sell it on their own doesn't have?
Well, there's no doubt about the fact that there are people out there who can sell their homes on their own. They have had that experience and, a good deal of it. Maybe they're in business. Maybe they have a real keen interest in the real estate market. But for the majority of people, and I'm talking 95% of people, if they try and sell it on their own, there's a whole lot that goes with it. Like the legalities are endless for one. You're putting yourself at risk in that regard. But more importantly, in a market such as this, if you don't have the right strategy in place and you don't have the right knowledge, if you don't understand the market, you're in danger of leaving a lot of money on the table, right? There's ways that realtors only know, and it's their business. It's what we do. We are professionals. And I get it if you want to sell your house on your own, and good luck to you. But what I look at mostly is, I think you're going to leave money on the table because you don't know how to maximize your return on your investment. And we know how to do that. I have certain strategies that I put in place, and selling the home right now, believe me, it's if you do the right things, it's not that hard, right? But you do have to set it up properly. And I'm not going to give all the secrets away on your podcast either.
That's right. You got three steps, but you got to click this button.
Yeah. But there are ways that we have knowledge of, and I've certainly experienced firsthand over and over in the last several years in this marketplace, that are proven ways to get your clients the most money they can. And at the same time, that's just for sellers. And for buyers, there's certain strategies and certain ways and certain information that we have access to, or we make ourselves have access to, that benefits buyers who are locked in a situation where they can't find a home to buy, right? Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't you, like for buyers, it doesn't matter. They don't pay the freight, right? They're not paying their realtors. The hope is you have them as a client. When they turn around and sell whatever home they buy, they'll call you, right? But for buyers, it doesn't matter. But despite the fact they're not paying out of their pocket, they better have a professional looking out for them right now, because if you're hunting on your own, or you don't have an agent who understands this market and is willing to work hard and find the things you're looking for, then you're going to be shit out of luck. I've got several clients right now who are looking, who have been in multiple offer situations already, but they're cautious. They don't want to throw money at a situation that doesn't make sense. So I often advise my clients, look, set yourself a ceiling and stick to it. Don't get caught in this game of, I'm in multiple offers again, I better just fire money at it. And, I don't want them to throw good money at bad, right? It just doesn't make sense. So my clients are savvy enough to say, no, that's my limit. My realtors advise me on this property, what I should spend, what my budget calls for. I help them stick to those budgets, so they don't go willy-nilly and fire away at any house because they're tired of the game, right? Mm-hmm. And that's happened a lot, man. There are people out there who are looking at a certain level of a house. They can't get it because they end up losing over and over in multiple offers. Mm-hmm. So they drop their price point, right? Maybe they're now looking at a townhouse, so they have more money to throw at it. And they'll go all in now because they're tired of, 5-6 times they've been in multiple offers and it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But the danger is there. And I always advise my clients of this, it's easy to get all excited and wrapped up where you're like, just throw another 50 grand at it so we can win, right?
Right. That's
It's a
dangerous.
dangerous game. So you need someone who's savvy in that area and can help you and advise you. I'm 0 for 3 in the last week with my clients. I've been in multiple offers 3 times with 3 different clients this week, and I'm 0 for 3. But my clients are okay because they didn't overspend as much as other people did. You're bound to overspend a little bit in this marketplace. And I've found ways to, advise them that, yes, the right house will come along. You just have to have some patience and it'll work out, right?
Right. That's great because you're kind of this emotional barrier as well, to where people don't get caught up too much and make an emotional purchase opposed to making a purchase that is right for them.
And I can see myself in their situation where I'd be like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Like, I'll just get another 50 grand from the bank and make this happen. But not everybody can do that, and not everybody should do that.
Right. Okay. Now, I do want to get into sports with you a little bit too.
Sure.
But before we do, though, in regards to people doing work on their own property, okay, one place that they can invest money in when it comes to their property to jump the price of their home, where would you say that work should be done?
Kitchen and bathroom.
Kitchen and bathroom. Okay.
Kitchen and bathroom.
Okay.
And I may even put bathroom ahead of kitchen sometimes, right? Because bathrooms are tricky. Like, you want a nice
place to poop.
Bathroom. Yeah.
Want a nice place to poop.
But I would invest in either and or each of those.
Okay, and like a finished basement, not all that important, or?
No, because a finished basement, it's nice to have, believe me. But a lot of times they're done a little bit DIY, right? And it's not necessarily what I would want in a finished basement. Sometimes my clients will say to me, okay, that finished basement's nice, but this one doesn't have a finished basement. I can envision what I would put there for my own taste, my own needs, right? So sometimes finished basement it's up there, but it's not the top of the list. Okay. I'd say kitchen for sure. It always ends up being the one where I would say invest a little bit of money. We didn't spend a whole lot of money. The most money we spent on doing ours was the countertop, right? But a lot of the grunt work you can do on your own. Like, I just basically asked somebody in the painting and refinishing business how to refinish kitchen cupboards. She explained it to me. I watched a couple of videos and I put the work in. It took a long time, like way longer than if a professional did it, right? But it turned out nice. My wife is super good at renovations. Like, she understands tiling. Not this guy. Mm-hmm. I don't get it, but she understands, things a whole lot better than me and has great vision. But a little bit of sweat equity never hurt anybody, right?
Right. Now on to sports. And we spent all this time building you into a likable individual to have to say this, that Kurt's a Leaf fan. What? A Toronto Maple Leaf fan? Is that right? I thought it was an error.
No.
So, no. And that was obviously a big thing, right? Working in Ottawa, but being a Leaf fan.
It was hard at times.
Yeah.
But I didn't walk around shouting it to the rafters, nor did I deny it. Mm-hmm. Right. Look, I'm a lifer. I grew up watching the blue and white team. Mm-hmm. Right. It was either that when I was a kid in the East Coast, that Montreal or Boston. Okay. Right. That was the 3 main. Like, my brother is a big Bruins fan. And I've grown to hate my brother a little bit.
That's awesome.
Oh, he's an awesome guy, but he lives in Vancouver and he's a Bruins fan. But he would be a Bruins fan. My dad was a Leaf fan. I was a Leaf fan. It was just the way, I grew up. And so I've had people say to me when I moved to Calgary, people were like, now you got to be a Flames fan, right? And I'm like, no. Then I came to Ottawa. And I knew it was going to be trouble, but I'm not a guy who, because I live in a certain city, I switch teams. It's not who I am. I stick with my team. Mind you, I did get to witness those tremendous series, like back in the early 2000s between the Leafs and Sens firsthand.
Yeah.
Right? They were unbelievable. But yeah, I'm a Leaf fan. I'm not one of the idiot Leaf fans. I sit back and wonder why my team can't win, just like everybody else. But that's
over the past few decades.
yeah, just since I was
Boy.
5 years old. I mean, it's only 53 years. Who's counting?
Let's move on to something that people care about. You're also a baseball fan. I love baseball. I'm a baseball purist. I umpire softball. I still do it to this day. I do. I just love officiating and making the right calls, explaining the theory of the game to people when they think I make a bad call. And I don't think there's anything more beautiful in sports, more so than a top shelf where they keep the peanut butter shot in hockey, but it's a double play, a well-executed double play that you can't even fathom how they're able to make the transitions that they do and all the mechanics that go into it to make one of those happen.
And how much better is it watching baseball live?
It's the best. I don't know why
everyone
doesn't like it, especially women that don't like sports. I used to go watch the Lynx all the time and the Champions too. 3 hours, you're outside in the sun. I mean, you don't have to even really care what's going on, like on the diamond. 50% of the time, I don't. It's just the atmosphere and the sound of the ballpark, stuff like that. I can't get enough of it. I don't even care if the home team's winning.
No, I know exactly what you mean. Like for me, when I was a kid, Jason, I went to Fenway Park. I think I was 12 when my dad took me there. I actually got a ball during the game. Like I think it was a foul ball or something.
Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly how that happened. Or maybe we had cousins who lived in Boston or outside of Boston. So we would visit them and my dad took me to Fenway. So I went there when I was 12 years old and I was a Red Sox fan. Like I said, when I started watching them on cable TV, that's who we had was Boston. So I went to Fenway when I was 12 years old. I did not go back to Fenway Park until, oh my God, I want to say 2007, 2008.
Okay, wow.
When I was here in Ottawa, because I didn't realize how close Boston was, right?
Right, yeah, just about a 5-hour drive.
So me and a group of fellas I worked with went on this trip and we drove down to Boston on a Friday. We didn't have tickets to Friday's game. We had Saturday and it was against the Blue Jays. So we show up in Fenway Park and buddy, I walked in and I looked around and tears are just streaming down my face. I hadn't been there since I was 12 years old. Yeah. Right. It just brought back a bunch of memories and stuff like that. But so anyway, we go to this game and we're having a great time. It's the Blue Jay. We got a great big sign that we're from Ottawa. We're out in the bleachers in center field. Huge sign. We had it made before we left by a sign company. And we hold up this sign and Ottawa loves the Red Sox and all this sort of stuff. And Roy Halladay was pitching for the Blue Jays.
Oh, wow.
The late Roy Halladay.
Couldn't be any better.
So we get there. We're so excited. We only have tickets to one game. We drove down the day before. We're driving back the next day. Roy Halladay comes in, mows down the Red Sox. They have a one-hitter. The game's over in 2 hours and 5 minutes. And we're like, that's it?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Our big trip's over. Anyway, that was the first time I went back since I was a kid, but I try, obviously can't right now, but I've gone back 6 or 7 times since with a bunch of lads, from the TV station that where I used to work and some other buddies, and we go down as much as possible and catch a few games at Fenway. Been up on the Green Monster. Oh,
that's
like, oh. And the beauty of it is we were Red Sox Nation members, so we would get we'd go in this lottery for Monster tickets, right? And a couple of times we got them standing room only. Well, the beauty of standing room only is it's great standing room only space up there. They got these huge things that you can lean on and watch the game. They got the Monster dogs. These giant foot-long hot dogs are fantastic. But inevitably, some people who are sitting on the wall, on the Green Monster, will leave early because it's a lot of corporations and stuff like that, right? So we would wait and we would spot some people, and halfway through the game, they'd be getting their coats on and stuff, and we would just look at them and go, you guys leaving? And they would say yes, and we would say, do you mind? And they'd be like, no, go right ahead. We're not coming back. So go right ahead. So there we are sitting with an arm on the top of the Green Monster at Fenway Park. Like,
That's amazing.
come
That's
on. And as a
iconic.
baseball guy, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
So, but I was lucky enough as a reporter back in the day when I was young. I went to Blue Jays training camp in Dunedin, Florida 5 times.
Yeah, I've been a few times myself. Years. Yeah.
I was there when the year they traded for Joe Carter and got Robbie Alomar that year, and they won a World Series later. When they all arrived, Dave Stieb, I was in the locker room with Dave Stieb, and they allowed us to buy Blue Jays gear from them.
Wow.
Like the same gear that the players would wear. So I'm standing there with the trainer, and he would take me to this room. Well, Dave Stieb comes by and stops, and he's like, what are you buying? I go, I like the satin jackets, right? The blue ones. Even though I was a Red Sox fan, I was getting one. And Dave Stieb says to me, you're about the same size. Here, try mine on. I'm like, what? Here I was, like 20-odd years old, young reporter, like just eyes wide open.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool.
That is awesome. I believe it or not, some of my favorite players from the Blue Jays back in those days, Tony Fernandez, and I loved Manny Lee. I don't know why, but I loved Manny Lee. There was something about him. Great backup player for sure.
I remember I was there once, and they had a couple of closers. Dwayne, what was
Ward?
Dwayne?
Ward and Hanky.
Dwayne Ward. So in Dunedin, there's this little bar that all the reporters go to, which has great chicken wings, Eddie's chicken wings and beer, cheap, right? So we would go there every night, and some of the players went there too. So we were at spring training, and I look over, and there was Dwayne Ward and another pitcher. I don't remember his name, but it was back in the days when you could smoke in bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're over there drinking our beers and eating these delicious chicken wings from Eddie's. And we look over, and there's Dwayne Ward having a smoke. So we're like, oh my God. So anyway, nobody said anything about it. Years later, like 15, 20 years later, I'm interviewing Dwayne Ward because he's on the Blue Jay Caravan here in Ottawa. And I took him aside before the interview, and I go, I've interviewed you before a long time ago when you were playing. I said, do you remember Eddie's? And he's like, oh my God. So we start talking about it, and I go, yeah, I saw you smoking in there one night. He goes, did you really? He goes, we used to sneak in there and have a cigarette back in the day. But it was, one of those moments where you're like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you connect. You really connect with somebody.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to move on to something I don't know all that much about, and I was a fan of for one reason and one reason only, and that would be the great Tiger Woods. Quite possibly the greatest golfer of all time. If you were just to take away that whole incident with his wife hitting his Cadillac, I believe, with golf clubs because she had found out that he had been cheating on her with multiple ladies. Remember the whole answering machine thing? Yeah, she might try to call you, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, he had 2 phones, yeah.
That ruined everything.
It sure did.
It did.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen anything in sports where there had been a block that, because he was so great, it was always it wasn't who was going to beat Tiger. It was just, was Tiger going to be off kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
And it was really, I think when I was watching it the most, it was Sergio Garcia.
Yeah.
Mickelson, obviously, always in there. Vijay Singh was actually still playing some pretty good golf back then.
Yeah.
So who's your favorite golfer, and what got you into golf?
I started playing golf as a kid. When I was 7 or 8 years old, my dad stuck one of those things that had a golf ball on a string attached to it, and you stick it in the ground, you hit the ball, and it kind of bounces back to you, right? I remember doing that as a 7 or 8 year old. But my dad took me out to little par threes around the Halifax area. He loved playing. He wasn't very good, but he loved playing, and he dragged me out there. So I got the bug early. I didn't play a whole lot in my early 20s. I had a big shoulder injury from hockey that kept me out of sports for like almost 7 years, from the time I was 18 to 25. But I got back into it, and I really started playing a lot of golf when I arrived here in Ottawa. I got myself a membership and met some guys who played a lot, and I had the perfect schedule for it during doing a morning show. Right. I said when I started dating my wife, I said to her a few things, but one of the things I said to her was, "Look, there's something you have to know. I play golf, and do you know what that means?" And she goes, "No, not really." I said, "Well, when it's nice out, I'll be out of the house a lot, but you'll know exactly where I am."
Yeah.
So, yeah, I played a ton when I was working on the morning show, and I just loved the sport. Like, I was a huge fan of Tiger Woods, but now it's like he's never been the same, right? Things have changed. So I love seeing the young guys coming up and the young players. I think Canada's got some great golfers that are
Whatever happened to Weir? He wins a
he's
jacket.
on the
and he
he's on the
disappeared too.
seniors tour now, the Champions Tour. He's
Really?
playing a few events. Yeah, he's playing a few events.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
the
he's actually
lefty.
done well a couple of times.
Yeah, he was really consistent for a while. Obviously hit his stride, and then just kind of.
He ran into some injury issues, and then he couldn't get his game back.
Right. And
but-
Daly, that was my favorite player.
Oh yeah,
Drinking
The best.
Daly. And who was yours? Your favorite was Tiger. Who would it be now?
I would say right now, I really don't have. I like Justin Thomas a lot. I think he's a great player and a good guy. I just like a lot of the young guys, like watching them and how they come up through and how they make it. Like Mackenzie Hughes from Canada is fantastic. He made the top 30 and was on the last weekend for the Tour Championship and the FedEx Cup. So he made it to there. So I kind of just watch the game. I don't have any favorite. I always hope Tiger does well. I can't help it. Right. I've grown to like Phil Mickelson a little bit, although apparently he's an arrogant asshole, but who cares?
Right.
So I'm just a big fan of the game, and I love playing. Like, as soon as you and I wrap up, I'm headed to Tremblant for the weekend for 3 days of golf with my buddies, our annual golf weekend. So it's just a lot of fun. Like, I'm not super competitive about it. You're playing against yourself to me. So I just love the game. It's just the social aspect. It's just fun. We laugh our asses off at each other.
Right.
It's a great way to do business too. I don't do a lot of business on the golf course. I just like playing.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to let you get to that golf in just a little bit. I don't think I've spoken to anybody this long in quite some time. I'm really enjoying it. Charitable endeavors. You're a charitable guy. There's some things that are near and dear to your heart. Spread some love on those if you'd like.
Throughout my career, Jason, and you've done it too, we're people that, organizations and look to help them out when it comes to putting on their events and getting the word out and so on. And I always looked at it this way, not that it was a part of my job, but it was my responsibility to help out in those areas. And so, there were years where I would MC 30 golf tournaments in town, and events that's one of the things I miss most about being in the media full time, is getting out to these events and helping them out, either as an MC or an auctioneer or just doing whatever you could. Right. And that was one of the things I loved about what I did. And sure, there were times where you get to the night of an event, you're like, oh my God, I'm tired. But people, would put a lot of effort into putting these things on, no matter what it was. It could be, a stew cook-off, or it could be a huge gala and everything in between, or a golf tournament, anything in between. So many people put their heart and soul into these things. They just need someone to get in front of a microphone and help them run it better. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. To make it happen. So to me, I loved doing it. And I felt it was part of my responsibility, not just my job, but, I've heard younger people in the media complain about these things. Mm-hmm. And I would be like, listen, you're only helping yourself, and you're giving of your time. Yes, it's part of your job, but I've heard that some people get paid extra to go to these things or whatever, and that's great too. But for me, it was all about my social responsibility and lending a hand, using whatever talent I had to help out in a situation where people are working their ass off. Listen, I'm just hair and teeth, right? I can go in there and talk about anything, do an auction, make an event go as smoothly as I possibly could. But the real work is the people who put that all together, right? And they're working for a cause. So, the things I do now, like you mentioned, we were talking earlier about the stuff I did with Shepherds of Good Hope recently. I'm getting more and more involved with them. My good friend David Gourlay is now a part of their team down there. So he's got me involved in that stuff. So I like to keep my hand in various things and happy to help out at any time. But when I was in the media business, to me, that was a big part of what we did and what we were all about.
Mm-hmm. I found a lot of the stuff was fun personally.
Yeah.
But
you see the joy in people's faces, right? And have experiences with them and enjoy an event. I've seen a lot of rubber chicken dinners, but I didn't care. It was a good time, and you always enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Very much like I'm enjoying this fern. I don't know why I'm drawn to this fern.
The fern is
lovely?
very, very attractive.
Thank you.
It's not taking over your screen, but
it was dying before I got it.
You brought it back to life?
I brought it back to life. I give life. Godlike. That's why I like plants. All right, this is going off the rails. So, Kurt, people are looking to sell a home. How do they find you?
They can reach me via email, kurt@kurtstoodley.com. I have a website, kurtstoodley.com. 282-6066. Call me. My number's on all my signs. It's my number. Give me a phone call.
Okay. I'm guessing it works the same if they're looking to buy a house too.
Exactly.
Buy or sell, same number.
I love it, and the more clients I have, the better, obviously. But it's a fun way to get to know people, and hopefully I can help them out. Anybody, give me a call. I can give you info, whatever you need.
Well, thank you very much, Kurt. And thank you to my sponsor as well. Sean at Gallant Media does websites, graphic design. He's made a Memoji mug.
Oh, wait.
For this gentleman. Oh, here we go. We're going to get the Memoji mug. Look at that. There we go. I got mine.
Hey.
That's nice.
Me with my hands in the air going, what?
Right. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. So, yes, my lovely sponsor at gallantmedia.ca. You take care, be well, and love simply because you can. Bam, that was gorgeous.